prosecution outlined how accounting practices
fuck?
did not.
What kind of likeness is that?
If they were great artists, they'll be in a museum.
Evidence today may signal at least one.
I'm fucking fodder for cartoonists now.
And it's time for another episode of Gutter Boys. Gutter Boys is a small press comics podcast about the ins, the outs, the highs, and the lows of making comics. I'm your host, JB, with my co-host, Cam. On this episode, we're joined with Cincinnati-based cartoonist Abby Kacen to talk about her comic work, as well as her nonprofit work that she's done over the last several years. We don't have too much news, because this episode went pretty long, I think.
Yeah, I do have one thing, and then I got some plugs. Or actually, to kind of pay the bills, our next Patreon episode will be completely news-filled. The last episode had Ramon Villalobos on it, and you can support us at gutterboys.top or patreon.com/gutterboys. $5 a month, you know what it does. It gets you bonus episodes every other week when we're not here on the main feed. And this next episode is going to be packed full of news. And we do a lot of news coverage over there nowadays, so if you miss that, you could definitely subscribe and get it there, but we're going to give you just a little taste, just a little hit of crack right now. So anything that is said right now is alleged because as of recording time, it has been kind of walked back and deleted, but something really funny happened, and Valiant, the comic publisher known to, what do? They do Bloodstrike, not Bloodstrike, what's that guy's name? Bloodshot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bloodshot and like Ninjak, you know, those characters, those like, they tried to do Image, but weren't nearly successful, but still somehow, I guess, because of the 90s boom, they were able to like hang on. But they had a job listing up, and it was for $30 to $35 an hour in Beverly Hills, which, is that livable in California? 30 to 35? That sounds sick in Kentucky.
No, I don't think that is.
Okay. Yeah, so for $30 to $35 an hour, Valiant was looking to hire a generative AI video artist. And unfortunately, the screenshot that was uploaded didn't have any more information, and the job listing has since been removed. But I can only imagine what, like, I mean, how do you even be good at typing prompts to generate a video? Like, the whole thing is kind of comical to me, you know? Like, I don't understand how you could be better than another person at that. Maybe you figure out how the software works. But the fact that this was, like, a quote-unquote mainstream comics publisher, even though I feel like Valiant's kind of fallen off in the last few years ever since they got sold, I really don't understand, like, one, what kind of qualifications does it take to get that job? And two, why? Are they even willing to, like, open the bank for that?
Yeah, I don't know what they think they have to gain from that. And in terms of, like, work experience, what would they be looking for? I guess maybe someone who's, like, has a writing background, right?
I guess, but it's like, if it's a generative AI video, like, you would think that they just need the imagery made. You know, that's the expensive part, right? So, and I have a very limited understanding of the way this shit works because I honestly haven't fucked with it too much. But don't you just type in prompts and it makes something off of the words you type? Or am I wrong there?
No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so I mean, even a dumbass, like, you don't even have to be a writer, I feel like. You could just be like bloodshot, explosions, tanks in a jungle, you know, and there you go. You've got Rambo Bloodshot. You know, it's, I don't know, but I just thought that was pretty crazy. Twitter, of course, had a field day with it. So I think that's why the, job listing was removed. And there was also people saying that, like, you know, Valiant is pretty much just a corpse because the guy who bought it is just like a venture capitalist and he just saw like IP opportunity. So he bought, Valiant as a publisher. And I guess that Vin Diesel movie didn't pan out. You know, we haven't seen the Valiant cinematic universe. So I guess it's just kind of cooked at this point.
I don't think many people are thinking about Valiant. So
No, I had honestly forgotten about them, and I'm not even joking. Like, I just haven't thought about them until I saw that. I was like, oh yeah, Valiant. Like, I feel like they haven't even really put out like a comic that, you know, anybody's really talked about. I haven't even seen it come across the timeline or anything like that. They were doing that weird thing for like engagement. Like, I remember it was so funny because Valiant would be like, they would put up those like bait tweets that would be like, who would win between Cyclops and Deadpool? And I would just reply being like, why don't you use your own characters? Like, what is this weird fucking like marketing you're trying to do here?
They're turning into those like generic Instagram accounts that are, you know, like superhero awesome.
Yes.
And then you click the account and it's just like reposted images from other people's accounts.
Yeah.
It's like, who is more badass, Batman or Batman when he kills people, you know, stuff like that.
Yes. It's just idiot content. But hey, you know what? Valiant's cooked. I mean, I don't even want to put them on pack watch because I don't even think they're alive enough to die at this point. But yeah, do you have any news you want to go over, or is that about it for the news segment?
No, I couldn't find anything that was worth talking about. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I've got a stack of it, like I said, that you can hear us dissect on patreon.com. And the episode after that, we will have a guest. Also, next main feed, tune in. You won't want to miss it. That's all I'll say. And as you'll hear us talk about here on the back end of this program with Abby, I will be in Athens for Fluke. I'm not actually tabling. Maybe I will. I don't know. Pat's tabling, so maybe I'll be behind a table with him or something. But we are doing an official pre-party at Bizarro Wuxtry. You'll hear us get into, you know, more about it on the actual main feed interview. But just make sure to come through. It's Friday, March 29th. We will have beverages, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, and food. It's all free. Readings from Eleanor Davis, Pat Rooks, Joey Weiser, Victor Alpe, Abby Kacen, David Caldwell, Amanda Selmer, and I will be hosting alongside Abby. And we want to thank Bizarro Wuxtry for giving us the space, as well as the UGA Special Collections Library and the Oral History of Fluke Project for the assistance in making this happen. So yeah, come through, and a little peek behind the curtain. JB and I will be actually a lot closer to each other than we realized after he moves. So maybe, just maybe, you know, I'll be able to just drive over there and pick him up. So for future shows, hey, maybe we'll both be there. You put up the money, we'll be there.
Yep. So yeah, unfortunately, I'll be sitting this one out.
Just timing wise, it didn't work, but there are some future opportunities. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
That we will have. And just keep your eyes peeled to our social media and the show, of course, and you'll be the first to hear about it.
Or this is all the work, and we are slowly phasing out the show.
Yes, and only doing live appearances for money.
All right, well, yeah, that does it. We'll go ahead and take a brief commercial break, and when we return, we will be joined with our guest, Abby Kacen, so stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
Underground Kingdom Comics Presents Romance is the third issue of a new anthology showcasing the UK's most exciting small press cartoonists. This 28-page A5 comic features cover art by Vincent Bell Robertson and comics by Lily Blakely, Adam Falp, and Anna Redman, plus pinups from Kai Reynolds and Matt Greaves. Daredevils and Warriors wrote, "If you want to leave your comfort zone and are looking for thoughtful and original comics that have an edge without being edgy, then you should check out these UKC books." You can buy Underground Kingdom Comics Presents Romance now, along with the previous two issues, Horror and Crime, and Original Art, by backing our Kickstarter, which is live until Friday, March 15th. Don't be a cunt, buy a comic, innit? Hell yeah.
And now a few words from our sponsors, the Santos Sisters.
Si ocurre algún problema, no temas que enseguida las hermanas Santos aparecerán para salvar el día. Hey, son varias lanas, son dos hermanas, tan calientes que te matan con su encanto. Y los villanos, hagan lo que hagan, no son rivales para la hermana Santos. El mal con su magia, ellas detendrán. No importa el problema, en cualquier situación con ellas contarás. El crimen no tendrá donde esconderse. A plena vista solo son chicas normales. Pero cuando los problemas aparecen, son superheroínas muy sensuales. Santos, hay tantos dispuestos a luchar.
Purchase your tracks today.
Meow. Sid the Cat magazine is out now. If you've ever been to an amazing rock and roll show and thought, I wish I could experience this moment again, but in comic form, then Sid the Cat magazine is for you. Fiercely independent show promoters Sid the Cat have joined forces with comics journalist Andrew Greenstone to bring you an ongoing publication that documents the SoCal indie rock scene. This stunning 52-page full-color magazine features comics, articles, photos, and illustrations from a rotating cast of local illustrators and writers. It's a celebration of Sid's artists and venues and supports those keeping the bleeding edge of the indie music scene alive. Our first issue covers musical artists Big Thief, Illuminati Hotties, Mike Kroll, Fucked Up, Finn Lilly, Katie Kirby, Kate LeBon, Cursive, Christian Lee Hudson, No Win, and so many more. If you are a fan of comics, indie music, zines, rock reports, or community by the way of culture, order a copy now at sidthecat.com/sid-zine. Again, that's sidthecat.com/sid-zine.
Athenium Comic Art is an original art website for some of the best cartoonists in the business. They currently represent Remy Boydell, Marie Capelle-France, Nicole Gu, Jonathan Hill, Emma Hunsinger, Casey Nowak, Micah Song, and Tilly Walden. Athenium Comic Art gives fans the opportunity to own an original piece of art from their favorite comics and support the artists that they love. In their short time in business, they've already shipped many iconic pages out to hardcore fans across the globe. Don't miss out on your chance to own a one-of-a-kind piece of history. Check out their website, atheniumcomicart.com, and type in Gutter Gang at checkout to receive free shipping on your first order. Again, the website is atheniumcomicart.com, and the code is Gutter Gang.
Morning, Gary. Morning, Marianne. Need a menu? Nah, I'll just have the usual. You sure do love your eggs and coffee, Gary. Best way to start your morning, Marianne. Well, that and an issue of Town and County. What's that? Town and County is a new comic series written and drawn by cartoonist Alex Knoll. He's that guy that wrote them books about teaching and that Mr. Rogers feller. Oh, he was such a nice man. The first issue is 36 pages of black and white comic stories with beautiful color covers and features 6 stories about folks in our little township here in Illinois, like Susie Barber, the house cleaner that uncovers her client's dirty laundry, if you know what I mean, and Stanley Pepper, that big feller that just lost his job and took to drinking every night at Bugs's Tavern. Well, ain't that something? Town and County is published by Ivy Terrace Press, headquartered in Chicago. Chicago? Who would want to live there? So dirty. Each issue comes with a copy of the Hometown Hero, our little town's newsletter, and it's only $8. $8? Where can I get it, Gary? You can order a copy of Town and County on the internet at StoreEnvy/Alex Knoll Comics. Oh, there's your breakfast, Gary. Thanks, Marianne. Nothing like a cup of coffee and a good comic book.
Rust Belt Review is a quarterly comics lit magazine featuring serialized and short-form comics from some of the most exciting cartoonists in the small press scene today. Volume 1 features work from Gutter alums M.S. Harkness, Audra Stang, and Caleb Orecchio, along with work by Andrew Greenstone, Sean Knickerbocker, and Juan Jose Fernandez. You can order your copy of Rust Belt Review today by going to rustbeltreview.org. Enter in promo code GUTTER to receive $2 off your order. Again, that website is rustbeltreview.org, promo code GUTTER.
The Last Aviatrix is a post-nuclear adventure comic. by independent Los Angeles-based cartoonist Buster Cagle. The story follows Summer, our last aviatrix, who pilots the sole-surviving airplane, a nuclear-powered B-29, as she travels the ruined world finding ways to survive and help humanity while dealing with the imminent threat of the Atom-born, a rare breed of atomic wizards that want to see her out of the sky. Her mission becomes complicated when she accidentally picks up Henry, an Atom-born child who wields incredible power, and Clementine, a berserker on a quest for vengeance. Can our aviatrix survive this ruined and irradiated wasteland? Every issue can be read for free on bustercagle.com/comics. Paper copies can be ordered as well, but, you can still read it for free. If you like wizards or warplanes, go check it out.
Now, back to our program.
And welcome back from the break. Today, longtime promoted guest, but you know how it goes here. We've got Cincinnati-based cartoonist, author of the book Sid and the Sickos, as well as a anthology series called Mild Pain, Abby Kacen. How are you doing today, Abby?
Doing all right. Glad to be here.
Hell yeah, for sure. So what have you been up to? I know you just reprinted some Mild Pain stuff, but I know you're working on stuff and you got the Patreon going, but what are you currently in the thick of right now?
Yeah, right now I've been working on the Sid and the Sickos sequel, and then Mild Pain is this ongoing thing, so everything that's in my regular sketchbook. Looks like it's 2 Mild Pains a year right now.
Okay. I know that you are from Cincinnati recently, and before that you were in, if I'm not mistaken, Georgia. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you from Athens? Or I know we're going to probably talk about Fluke here shortly, but are you from around there, or where are you from there?
So I'm originally from Chicago. My family moved when I finished the 8th grade, and then I started high school in Georgia and stayed there and went to the University of Georgia in Athens for college and stayed there after college for several years. So I'd been living in Athens for 8 years and then moved to Cincinnati 2 years ago.
Okay. Do you feel like you were exposed to like comics like early on in Chicago, as far as, did you see any of that alternative stuff that was going on there just because it's got such a rich history there, or were you not really aware of that stuff at the time?
I feel like I wasn't aware of it, but I did grow up reading the Sunday cartoons, and my dad took me to comic book stores, so I like grew up reading comics.
Hell yeah. Yeah, your stuff reminds me a lot of like the newspaper stuff, especially the Mild Pain stuff that you post. And I think that stuff's kind of really great, kind of self-contained strips. Now, as far as like, divvying up your workload, what does that look like for you? Because you do have a bunch of different things going, and I feel like you do a lot of like single illustrations as well. So, how do you juggle all that? Do you, individually portion out time, or is it kind of just a vibe thing?
Mostly a vibe thing. I think with working on a book right now and wanting it to be done in a certain amount of time, I'm trying to force myself to just focus on that, but I often stray. I've never been really good at working on just one thing at one time. I usually enjoy juggling multiple things.
So I didn't really know that you were originally from Chicago. That's funny.
Yeah, born and raised.
Do you go back to visit, or not so much?
I had been back a couple times when I moved to Georgia, just on trips, and recently was there in July of last year, just with some friends for fun. I still have some family up there, but I don't really claim Chicago as home anymore. So it's been kind of interesting to go back and feel like everything's new to me.
Yeah, no, and I'd imagine it's changed so much since when you left.
Totally.
Were you from the actual city or from the suburbs?
From the city. I grew up in Jefferson Park, which is kind of on the northwest side.
Okay. I'm not familiar with where that is, so I'm not going to pretend like I do know, but I'm sure JB does.
It's on the blue line.
Okay. Now, it is like, like such an interesting backdrop for comics as far as like Chicago, but what's it like in Athens? Because I'm assuming you were doing, actually, no, I'm not even assuming. I know you were doing work in comics and illustration in Athens. So what's that scene like? I know they've obviously got Fluke, but that's kind of like a zine show.
Yeah, Athens is this kind of dreamy little island of music, and it feels like what's the fucking Peter Pan thing, like Neverland, where no one grows up. And
Yeah.
so it's mostly music heavy, you know, like B-52s and REM are from there, and Neutral Milk Hotel, some other ones I'm definitely forgetting. So the scene there, most of my friends are musicians, and I worked in a music nonprofit there, and there are some cartoonists, as you know, like Patrick Dean and David Mack and Eleanor Davis. Those are some of the like local people there. But it's just this like chill little place, and it is a university town, so it's really dominated by a student population, but it's the kind of college town that isn't overrun by that necessarily. Like it has its own community and towny crowd and a feeling of its own outside of college.
And I feel like a lot of your work is music focused, which I honestly like. I feel like that's probably just because you're a product of that scene, I'm assuming. It kind of just seeped in. You're always posting that you listen to cool shit too. So I'm assuming that's just coming from you being around there.
Yeah, for me being around there, but also my partner, Steve, he is a big music collector and has great taste. So we get to share that.
Shout out Steve.
Yeah, shout out Steve. He's great.
Now, one thing I did actually want to ask you about is, you know, with Sid and the Sickos, like you're actually, you know, doing comics about like a band and music. Do you feel like it's kind of hard to tell stories about music in a format that doesn't have audio involved? I mean, you can also put out a CD or like, you know, a recording with your comic. We've seen people do that. Mm-hmm. But as far as like, you know, the basics of it, do you find that to be a challenge?
Not really, mostly because the story about the band is more about them as people. And
sure.
But something I want to do more of in this sequel book is the illustrative ways of conveying sound or music with, you know, like the words that indicate sound is happening, or just visual effects. Like I'm trying to lean into cartooning and make it a comic that you can see that music is happening, even though it is a visual format. Because comics I've read that have that in there, it feels like you get that sense. Or if you're in a crowded bar or a venue and there's people all around you, like that's always been a feeling I've tried to convey in my illustrations and in this new comic.
Hell yeah.
Not to hark back on you being from Chicago again, but so how old were you when you moved?
So yeah, I'd finished the 8th grade, so I was like 12, 13.
Okay. And was there much of a culture shock from growing up in the Midwest to suddenly finding yourself in the South?
Completely, yes. The biggest shock, I think, for me was realizing how segregated Chicago is. Because when I started high school in Georgia, I was in a school with more than just white people. Right. So I guess to give some more context to that, I in a multi-ethnic family. My mom is from Honduras and my dad is from Chicago. So even though I grew up in a multi-ethnic family, I lived in a super white European neighborhood for the whole time I was in Chicago, and I went to a school with just white people, and that was really strange. And it was also a fucking Catholic school, so I was really narrowed down.
Right, yeah. Jefferson Park, is that mostly what, Polish?
Polish, Romanian, Irish, and Italian.
Okay, yeah. So Chicago, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
It's Chicago for sure.
Yeah. And the food too is pretty different, right?
Yeah. I mean, like now I love Southern food. Like, give me like grits and collards all day and all night. They're so good.
You got the better end of that transaction, because when I moved to the when I moved to the Midwest, especially when I moved, like Chicago, it's kind of its own thing in a way. Like it is part of the Midwest technically, but culturally it is kind of its own place. There's more variety. The food is, as a result, a lot better. But like when I moved to Iowa, I really got like the full impact of Midwestern cuisine. And having grown up in the South, it was like, Jesus Christ, this is horrible.
Wait, so JB, you're from Florida, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what part of Florida?
Central, in between Tampa and Orlando.
Okay. Yeah. I can only imagine like the meat and potatoes and casserole.
Yeah, everything's made with like stuff from a can or a box.
And covered in cheese.
Florida?
No, in the Midwest.
No, in the Midwest.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, okay.
Whereas, in the South, it's a little different. They don't I mean, there are elements of that, but they don't depend strictly on just these like foods that have like long shelf lives, unless it's like pickled.
Cam, do you consider Kentucky to be the South or the Midwest? This is an important question.
I consider it the South, considering like the stereotypes of, hillbillies and everything like that.
Okay.
So yeah, I consider it the South.
All right.
But
I wouldn't call Cam's accent a Midwestern accent.
I do think that there is a dividing line in there, and this is my theory that I've devised after moving to Ohio, and that you can determine when you've hit the South when people stop worshiping college basketball and start worshiping college football.
Oh, yeah.
Totally true.
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, you're right, like over the bridge, which I guess is like right under 2 hours from me. And I guess like I don't really consider like, we were actually talking about this on the Patreon, but like Newport, Kentucky, like right outside of Cincinnati on the other side of the bridge. I don't even really consider that Kentucky because vibes wise, that's Cincinnati. But yeah, it's really strange because I feel like there is like you said, the college basketball, college football line. I've never really thought about that before, but that's so true. Spot on.
Yeah, that didn't click in my mind until I was thinking about it when I moved here to Cincinnati. And I remember that my math teacher in grade school was super obsessed with the Tar Heels. And I was like, wait, why isn't anyone talking about college football? Except for like, MS talks about like Ohio State or whatever Ohio university that has a football. Like that's the only football team that people talk about here.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
the Buckeyes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you have the Bengals in Cincinnati, I guess, but I don't know if they're good or not. I don't really watch football.
I don't even follow sports, and I know they are not good.
They're also NFL.
They got cool helmets.
Oh, they're the NFL, so not college, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, but this is just me. I really do think that an NBA team in Louisville would do gangbusters because I don't know why, but the states of Kentucky and Indiana love basketball.
They fucking love basketball, yeah.
They breathe it. It's insane. So anyways, I digress. It would be sick to have an NBA franchise though. Yeah, so I do want to ask you about, what you do for a living because it is, related to art. And we do like to talk about, how we're able to support ourselves as cartoonists and also finding work in ways that you can use your skill set as a cartoonist. So what is it exactly that you do there?
So in Cincinnati, I originally moved here 2 years ago to work at an arts nonprofit working in public art management. And I quit that job about a year ago. And now I work at another smaller arts nonprofit in Cincinnati. It's an art supply thrift store. So I manage all their daily operations and volunteers and pretty much everything because it's just like me and my boss, like we're the team. And that's been really refreshing to it's a little bit more community focused. And so I guess to give it some more context beyond that, like sustaining a career, I went back to school in 2019 for graduate school and got a master's in nonprofit leadership because I thought that I needed to get a real fucking job. So I did that. And, I didn't think I was going to actually do anything with my BFA. So that's how I ended up in Cincinnati was I followed a job. Now I have this one and I've been working full time for the last several years. So it's been chill. I don't know what I'm really doing, but I think I have a skill set now that is transferable to other types of jobs if I want to keep having money.
Now, you did say you went back to school, and there's no right or wrong answer here, but do you feel, I guess you went back to school for, like you said, more of like a quote unquote adult job, but do you find like value in any kind of, art school at all? Like, I don't know if you took any art classes or anything along the way.
Yeah, so I got my BFA in interdisciplinary art, which is a silly degree, but I was trying to study animation, but at the University of Georgia, they didn't have an animation program. So I mostly focused on drawing, studio drawing, and then the animation classes I took were in the theater department. So I was taking computer animation and also theater classes like acting and screenwriting. And by the end of it, I was mostly focusing on drawing and writing. And I think that was valuable for me now looking back as making comics because that's what comics is. It's just drawing and writing. And I decided I hated computer animation anyway, so I knew that wasn't going to be my path in life. But I think as far as like going to school, it's good if you are attentive and use your resources there. Because I was a fucking shit student. I was just getting drunk and not going to class and then showing up to class like falling asleep. So I think it's useful when you are there and you know what you want to get out of it and know how to use every resource available to you. But no one in undergrad does that. No one really goes in with a plan.
Sure. Now, this is kind of backtracking, but I meant to ask, you said that you were working at a kind of like a thrift store for art supplies. Are you guys working on donations? How does that work? Like getting stock for that? Because when I think thrift store, I think donations.
Yeah, everything that we have is donated, and it's great. So many people love crafting and making art, and Cincinnati has two nearby university, or a few nearby universities, but the biggest ones nearby is like the University of Cincinnati and the Art Academy. So we do get a lot of art students nearby that either leave art supplies with us after they graduate, or literally just like fucking grannies with their crafting attics that they load off onto us. So we are well stocked in donations every week.
That's so sick. Yeah, I don't think we have anything like that around Louisville to my knowledge, and I've never even really heard of that system working for an art supply store, but I'm assuming everything's sold at more of a discount to be more affordable as well.
Yeah, heavily discounted, but also we do everything pay what you can.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hell yeah, that rocks. Are you like behind, or do you join that organization and shop, right? You didn't help build that up or anything like that?
Nah, I didn't help it. They've been there for 8 years.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'm just fascinated by that. That's so cool.
What was the job that you had in Athens?
Yeah, so I've worked a lot around Athens. Like when I finished college, my undergrad, I was working in the service industry up until I went to grad school. I started volunteering at this nonprofit called Nucci Space, and they're a musicians nonprofit. So their whole place and their building is this low-cost music practice space, and you can also rent gear there, and the main part of their mission is that they prevent suicide. So they provide subsidized care for musicians and their friends and family and close ones so they can get the care that they need. And yeah, I was volunteering there when I was going to grad school because I wanted to figure out how nonprofits worked, and they resonated with me as a place that provides a service for the community. And I worked there as an intern, and then after college or after grad school was working there part-time in their development department. So like managing donor information and helping out with fundraising and grant writing. So that was where I was working up until I moved to Cincinnati.
And did you predominantly work in nonprofit spaces before, or was that just something you found yourself going into?
Yeah, when I started volunteering there, that was when I kind of started. But before then, it was really just the service industry. My first job out of undergrad, I was a baker and a barista, and then worked a few other service industry jobs. I worked at a t-shirt warehouse for a short time. Yeah, I was just like juggling a lot of part-time gigs because I needed money.
And since you're now back in the Midwest, was that another kind of culture shock in a way?
Yeah, I have a lot more perspective now, and it's been interesting as I guess as an artist, but also as a person to observe the people's perceptions of the South as a Southern Midwesterner. And yeah, I'm still piecing it together. I don't think I'll stay in the Midwest forever, mostly because it's fucking cold. But it's been strange, but interesting.
Do you feel like not jumping around, that implies that, but do you feel like the ability to create and what you create is shaped by your environment, or are you able to kind of just do whatever wherever you are?
Yeah, feels like it's really shaped by my environment. Like with Sid the Sickos, that was a product of dealing with some personal grief and kind of turning my thought processes and my experiences living in Athens into characters that were, living in this fictional story that I could kind of play out in my head. But my autobio, like Mild Pain stuff, is pretty influenced by my feelings about things on a semi-daily basis. I don't draw it daily, but I reflect a lot on the experiences I've had and the things around me and how that shaped me, either through childhood or teenage or college and the present day. So yeah, there's a lot of influence from my environment for sure.
Right on.
So how much of your process has changed over the years since when you initially started doing comics to where you're at now?
When I started making comics, this would be back in like 2016, 2017, I was making zines at the copy shop that I worked at. And that was a lot of just Sharpie on cheap paper, pretty much anything I could get. But I think the big changes in my process has been the tools that I use now. Like I've been working more with the dip pen and nibs, but before then, like the in-between would have been expanding to like Kuretake brush pens and microns, and that's like the nitty gritty stuff of just the tools themselves, but also stylistically trying to have better drawing overall. I think what I've seen the most change in my shitty zines from several years ago to now is that my drawing has a lot more volume to it, and that's something I've always wanted to try and achieve and continue to get better at. Yeah.
Do you normally start out with a script?
No, sort of. I kind of have a messy back and forth process of writing out outlines and some scribbles of thumbnails right now, and I had never really done that before. But when I was in undergrad studying like dramatic writing and screenwriting, that was always with the intention of thinking about animation. So I would write and also draw at the same time, even though my drawings didn't affect my writing projects in school. So now I kind of do this back and forth of loosely scripted, loosely thumbnailed, and now doing more structured process for paneling out my pages before I even pencil them. But like when I made Sid the Sickos, I had no plans whatsoever. I just sat down one day, drew a panel, and then several days happened and I kept drawing more panels. And I'd never done that before.
And so what are your tools that you normally go with? Like, are you a brush person, a nib person? Do you prefer ink-loaded pens? Do you ink out of a well? What's like your go-to?
Yeah, right now, inking out of a well with a nib. Shout out Victoria and Halftone Hospital, because I've been using the nib holder that they put out around CXC last year. But I do like to use a brush. I'm not super good with the brush, but I like to go for that when I'm trying to make something a little more brushy and expressive, usually in my sketchbook.
And do you normally color your work on paper, or do you do that just purely digitally?
Digitally right now. I used to, that's kind of the thing I'm struggling with right now, is I would like to work in color. I had taken some workshops with Josh Bayer and Hyena Hell and had seen Bayer do his, color demos, and I really want to be able to do that, but I haven't really figured it out yet. And I think after I finish this book, or simultaneously, I'll start to experiment more and just play with different materials and figure out what works for me. But I like when I was in undergrad, I did do a lot of like digital and color illustrations. That it's weird to not do that now.
I remember, this is like unrelated, but it involves Bayer. I asked him years ago about his coloring process, and he was so enthusiastic about it, and he didn't know where I was from or whatever, and he just messaged me back. He was like, "Are you in New York? Can you meet me here? Because I can just show you." And I was like, "No, man, I'm in Kentucky," but I appreciate it nonetheless. But yeah, his coloring rocks.
Yeah, him and Hyena are like my self-adopted comics parents, so they're amazing.
Hell yeah. That's actually kind of a segue into what I wanted to get into next before we got into your listener questions. You do event organization, and you run the, and I'm probably going to botch this, is it the Northern Kentucky Comics Club?
Yeah.
Is that the name?
Pretty much. So the shop that my friend runs is called Indie Northern Kentucky, or also known as Inc. But yeah, it's like the comics club there. Okay.
And I believe you had Josh and Hyena do a reading there, correct?
Hyena was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Now, I do want to talk about, you organizing events because, I feel like that's, something I've kind of been working with you on. You've been doing the majority of the work, full disclosure, but, you are constantly promoting, things in the scene to get together. What is that like, what's the purpose? Is that something that you feel like you should just build? Like, why do you feel that that's important? And, why do you continue to organize things like that? And, what are your plans with that in the future?
Yeah, I like sharing opportunities. I think that stems from this very open source anti-capitalist mindset of everything should be free and accessible to people, even the knowledge of things. So
Right.
I run a website called Keep It Weird, which back in the COVID years, in 2020, it was a platform where I was helping artists sell their work for those who didn't have an online store or didn't want to manage their sales or deal with all that kind of shit. So
it's kind of like a distro you were running?
Sort of, but they
Okay.
never sent me their merch. So I usually would just send them the orders. So some friends of mine, Ness, Bad Hands.
Oh, yeah. You did a zine with Ness, right?
Yeah, we did
yeah.
Internet Friends. That was
Right.
the best. Ness is probably one of the reasons why I make comics now, because I discovered their work. After I met Scott and Caroline at some Zine Fest, I think I first met them at Fluke, and then again at the Charleston Zine Fest, where I met my friend Vic, who was also part of that Keep It Weird crew. And it was great because it felt like this way to connect with people. And even though I had done some community organizing in Athens before COVID, I had started a drink and draw and stuff, and that was just out of wanting to make friends and have people to talk to who liked the same weird shit that I like. Yeah, the website Pseudo Distro was a good way to keep people feeling like they had opportunity to make money and support themselves as artists in a strange time. But since then, it's become this online free resource where there's this big list of all the active zine fests and indie comic shows in the United States that I just voluntarily update monthly because I wanted to know what was going on in the US and shows that I would hope to go to one day or aspire to. And but there's no reason to hold this information just for myself. It should be for everybody. And that's kind of where the event organizing and community organizing stems from, is just creating something for people to enjoy that isn't, doesn't have a paywall in front of it. It's not judgmental of people, and it's not really hoity-toity. It's just kind of scrappy and DIY.
Hell yeah. Now, the stuff you're organizing now with the Comics Club and at the ink shop there, are there a lot of local Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky cartoonists? I mean, living here in Kentucky, admittedly, I'm really not aware of anybody outside of Louisville, and that's just a fault of my own, really, for not doing the research. But is there a healthy scene going on up where you're at?
Not really. As y'all know, the comic scene in Ohio is Columbus, for sure.
Right, yeah.
But there's a lot of enthusiasts, and there's definitely a lot of zinesters here. But there's a couple cartoonists of us at the Comics Club. But the club itself is more for people who are just really into indie comics and zines. So there's folks who, they'll sift through the dollar bins or whatever at the local comic shops and are just happy to talk about comics with people. So that's been really nice to have.
Now, that shop that you all are running events out of, is it like an indie comics store? Is that what they mainly sell there, or what are they moving there?
It's a lot of zines and indie comics. So supporting the local zine scene. The folks who run the zine side of it, my friends Tom and Bren, they organize Zine Cincinnati, which is the local zine fest, and they've been doing that for a while. And then they opened up Ink last year, and it's inside of a flower shop, which is adorable. And yeah, it's been cool to see that they're able to do that and kind of have this landing zone for people who make zines. And also I know they buy from Silver Sprocket and other folks who are distributing indie comics.
Hell yeah.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on Cincinnati compared to, Athens?
It's similar in that Cincinnati is consistent of these neighborhoods. So it's kind of like a bunch of small little towns jumbled up next to each other. And everyone who lives here has seen and knows everyone that they went to high school with. Even the people in their 30s and 40s who moved away and came back, they all know everybody that they went to high school with. And that's strange for me. I don't even have friends from high school really. And I think because I had moved to Georgia when I started high school, I don't have this strong tie to things like that. And there's a lot of artists here too, which is also strange compared to Athens, like a lot of visual artists or performance-based artists. And I'm not used to that. It's kind of overwhelming. There's a bit of this this vibe of people feeling like they want to channel that New York or LA vibe, but it's like y'all are in Cincinnati, Ohio. Like no one knows where we are. Like whenever I go to Athens and like visit my friends, they're like, "How's Cleveland?" I'm like, "I don't fucking know how Cleveland is."
Yeah. There's so many big cities that start with the letter C for Ohio. You got Columbus, Cleveland, I guess there's 3, but still. Is Cincinnati just kind of a stop on your journey, or do you think you're actually going to plant roots there?
It's definitely a stop on the journey.
Okay.
I've appreciated having the opportunity to meet a bunch of visual artists. Like I said, there's not as many in Athens. The visual arts scene there is pretty fleeting. Like all the kids who go to the art school at the University of Georgia don't tend to stay. So it's been cool to have new inspirations. Like the nonprofit I worked at when I moved here was a way to meet a bunch of artists, just because that was my job, was to manage artists and projects that they did. So I'm glad that I got to have this kind of big jump into the unknown and exposure to all kinds of new things. But I think that I will probably live somewhere else, if not back in Georgia at some point.
Hell yeah. Now, I guess we can go ahead and talk about the Fluke event here, because by the time this airs, it'll be announced. So you have been organizing, along with me, but like I said earlier in the show, mainly you. We're doing a pre-party for Fluke the Friday before, which is March 29th, at the Bizarro Wuxtree, which I believe is like a record comic hybrid store, if I'm not mistaken. I've always wanted to go there. I've heard about it, but I don't know what it is exactly. Is that kind of the setup?
Yeah, so on the main street floor is the record store, and then above, like to the side, there are stairs, and that's the comic book shop. So it's all housed in the same building.
Hell yeah. And we have a killer lineup. We're both going to be hosting, but our lineup here, we've got Eleanor Davis, who I want to thank you for securing that. And we've also got, previous guest, friend of the show, Pat Rooks, and Joey Weiser, who I believe is a young adult comics artist, correct?
Yeah, Athens-based.
I'm familiar with their work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Victor Alpi, you, of course, are reading. David Caldwell, maybe a few more might come in, and we'll update it as far as like the reader list on the intro of the show if we get another reader or something signed up. But you're doing this from afar, this event. So is that presenting any kind of difficulties or challenges for you, or is it pretty easy because you've got so much support in Athens with, friends, acquaintances?
Yeah, it's been mostly easy as far as like acquaintances go. So I originally pitched the idea to Robert Newsom, who started Fluke with Patrick Dean long ago. So I pitched the idea to him, and he was like, "Yeah, we could, a pre-Fluke thing sounds good." And he had connected me with Catherine Manis, who's this librarian at the UGA Special Collections Library, her and another librarian, Mandy Mastrovita, they secured this grant from the UGA Institute for Women's Studies to conduct oral histories with Fluke and the Fluke community members. And so they decided that they could co-sponsor our event. So that made it pretty sweet to have their support and get that state money. So yeah, Catherine and Mandy, they'll be at the event too. They'll talk about their oral history project, and Robert's wife as well has been conducting some of these interviews about Fluke to contribute to this oral history project. And then they'll also be at the Fluke Fest, which is the day after our event, March 30th, to receive any zines and comics that folks would like to donate and be included in their archive, or to chat about how to access that archive that's at UGA. So that's, it's been great to have them help do the boots on the ground type stuff, like talking to Devlin at Bizarro to make sure that we can use their space, because he's a hard man to reach. So it worked out.
Hell yeah. So shout out to everybody working that, and, shout out to you for doing such a great job on that. Now, kind of just teeing it up, what does your roadmap look like for the year? You're doing Fluke. Are you doing any other shows this year?
I don't know. It seems like I'm missing stuff, or will be. I guess the only other big thing is I'll be returning to the cabin. I'm Hocking Hills alum returning this year, so that'll be fun. I applied to CXC, but Steve and I decided that we're gonna blow it off and go to Memphis instead for this music festival called Goner Fest.
Oh shit!
Right on.
Nice. Yeah, Goner Fest. Hell yeah. Very nice.
Very stoked. We don't even know who's playing yet. They haven't released the lineup.
It'll be good. Yeah.
It'll be very good.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're a huge WFMU household, and a lot of the DJs there really tout the Goner records and Goner Fest, so it'll be a good time.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not familiar with Goner. Is it like a genre label, or they kind of do a lot of stuff? Or
well, I mean, Abby, you can explain. I'm not gonna.
No, you go ahead. I probably can't.
Well, okay,
explain it
so
too well.
Goner Fest is like an annual garage punk music festival thing. It's put on by Goner Records. It's a record store now. They're not so much active as an actual label so much. I mean, they still put out stuff, but not nearly to the degree that they were pumping stuff out back in like the 90s. But they were responsible for like a lot of the garage punk that was coming out of Memphis and sort of the adjacent southern states. Like some of their bigger acts are like the Oblivions and all the fucking bands that came out of the Oblivions. So it's like that kind of the sort of vibe of music, this sort of like garage punk thing that they're into. And I noticed over the last 10 years or so, they're also leaning more into like post-punk stuff. There's been like a weird mishmash of garage punk and post-punk coming together. So there are elements of that too. I don't know how much of that is still prevalent. Like I know that was popping off in like the, like late aughts, early 2010s. So it may not be as prevalent now that I think about it, but that was a thing that was still huge. And you still see like modern labels and like modern scenes, especially like in Australia, where there's a lot of like overlap between garage punk and post-punk stuff.
Yeah, there's one of the bands that played at Goner Fest last year, Civic. They're an Australian band that's still doing some cool stuff right now.
Yeah, one of the bigger acts too. At least back when I was like more plugged in, was Jay Retard before he passed away.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know that dude. Yeah. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of the sound. It's like just really gnarly garage punk.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, y'all should have fun then.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Last year, the lineup, they had like the Mummies, which I don't know if y'all are familiar with.
Oh, yeah. Classic 90s garage punk for sure.
Yeah, they I saw them in Athens because they had played at the Athens Pop Fest, which is a no longer existing music festival that I had the pleasure of doing the artwork for in 2018. My friend and neighbor Mike Turner runs the Happy Birthday to Me label. He lives in Florida now because that's where he's from, but if it had not been for Mike Turner, I probably wouldn't even be making the art that I am now, because he like found my zines and was like, your shit is cool, like you should make more.
Nice.
And he paid me to do all that artwork for the poster and the festival, and that was the last Pop Fest ever. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Cam, you'd probably be into the Mummies. They're kind of like a garagey surf rock kind of band, but the music in comparison to like how they performed live it's very jarring, because their live shows were notoriously just like out of pocket. Like these guys were fucking nuts, and all of them were wearing like mummy bandages.
They still do.
Oh, so they dress up like mummies?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole shtick.
Yeah.
It's a whole gimmick. They're sticking to that gimmick.
Cool. I'm going to check them out. I just actually opened my phone and added them to my Spotify to check out.
Yeah, they'd get real rowdy.
Okay.
Yeah. Cam, do you know Man or Astro Man?
Oh, yeah, that band rocks.
Yeah. Also from Athens, also gimmicky.
You know what? One of my favorite things, like, I don't even know if this is true because this is going to date me and show how old I am, but I remember reading on a message board about Man or Astro Man doing a tour where they, like, the storyline of the tour was there were evil clones of them. So they booked 2 shows in every town, and one was like a cover band that were the evil clones, and you didn't know which gig you went to until you got there, if it was the real Man or Astro Man or the clones playing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, again, this was like back in the day reading on message boards. So like, I'm sorry if that story's not true, but in my heart it's true and it rocks.
See, yeah, that's the stuff I love. Very glad to be going to Goner Fest. And yeah, like aside from that, I don't really have any fest plans. Like Steve and I are going to go try again because we tried last year but got COVID. We're going to try and go to San Francisco. And it kind of coincides with when the San Francisco Zine Fest is, but I'm not planning to table. But if it's happening and it's there when I'm there, I will go and check it out. And I'll also check out, the Silver Sprocket store. And apparently I learned today there's like a cartoon museum in San Francisco.
Oh, I'm not surprised, but I didn't know about it.
Yeah, I was
just because, the rich scene, I guess they're in the 60s,
they don't have a
but,
scene there, right?
Apparently that's the word on the street, right?
Yeah. Just no comic scene at all in San Francisco.
TCJ Publishing nothing but hits, but let's not. All right. So, are you all doing a show the weekend of the retreat? Are you all still bookending that with the show in Columbus? I'm assuming.
Yeah, that'll coincide with CXC. So,
okay, gotcha.
We leave the cabin when like the whole CXC thing starts. So I had no intentions of being in Columbus for the whole thing anyway. So as much as I really enjoyed being at CXC for the first time, I also would love to party in Memphis.
Yeah.
So.
I applied for CXC. We'll see. I'm not feeling very positive about it, but that's okay. So I'm sure that you will have a blast at Goner Fest. But that rocks. Yeah, shows are. They're getting more expensive. I feel like I saw the SPX price tag and I was like, y'all are tripping.
Well, that's just SPX, man. That's
But even that went up. And I feel I don't know. It's just crazy. It's crazy. And
SPX has always
actually
been expensive though.
But it's worse now.
Oh, I know because of inflation. But like what I'm saying is like they've always been expensive.
Notoriously,
I remember in 2015 seeing their table prices. Me like that is insane.
It's crazy. I'm not going to say who, but someone that we all know, and I'll tell you all off air if you want to know. But they got offered a table at SPX, and they were like, "Oh, cool, hell yeah, I'll do it because you're offering me a table." And they were like, "Oh, but it will cost you $300."
Like that's
so
not
that's how
offering
apparently
a table.
they're moving. Yeah, that's apparently how they're moving this year. So.
Damn, that's sad.
Wow.
They have fallen off quite a bit, man.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever make it there. Like that's the thing about fests and accessibility is like if the price point is too high, then what's the point?
No, yeah, totally.
We make fucking comics, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think the point with SPX is like 6 or 7 years ago, that price point was more tenable because the idea was if you go to that show, you're going to be in front of a lot of eyes in prominent places that could get you paid, right? They could get you a gig. They could get your book published, whatever. And now that seems less and less likely, or at least about as likely as any other show now, So
it used to be like a scouting type deal.
In a way, yeah. Because a lot of animators and a lot of like people who worked at those studios would go to those shows even though they weren't local, but they would attend because they knew that the variety of creators there was very, very good. And so you would see a lot of big name people showing up and checking out the work, getting someone aside and being like, "Hey, I'm really into your work. I think you'd be perfect for so-and-so or this job or the other." And, and then word would spread and people would be like, "Well, shit, I got a table at the show because, people are getting noticed there." But that's just happening either at other shows or just online. So, I don't know. I don't think they've really adapted to sort of the changing environments that well compared to, other shows. And I think, I don't know, like I don't want the show to fail. I don't want the show to go away. But I think if they keep doing that with blinders on and not being receptive to the fact that like shit is changing and they can't keep pricing up their tables like that, then, the natural course of things is going to be like no one's going to go to that show.
Yeah, that's like when I guess CXC was like my first, big girl tabling event. And I didn't really enter with expectations. And it was fine. I was there to vibe and be next to Josh and Hyena, which was great. And also next to Audra.
Hell yeah.
That was a good time. But outside of that, it's like, this isn't, like, I don't feel different tabling at events. It's always been out of the spirit of what I had experiencing at Zine Fest, which is this celebration of people who like this weird little thing and not a place where I need to impress people. So
right.
I've never I'm not like hitting the road on tour anytime soon because I don't think I'm that much of a hotshot. I'm just a cute little hobbyist drawing my little things.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like me and Cam, we did a lot of like Zine Fest shows, but while I was doing those zine shows, I was also doing like my first convention, my first tabling experience was at a Reed Pop show. So while I didn't have any expectations, it was a very different experience. And then that compared to doing these smaller shows like the Zine Fest or Cake or whatever, it really gave me like a better idea of like setting expectations and kind of figuring out what it is that you want to accomplish by going to these shows. Because I feel like if you don't like figure that stuff out and you're just paying these fucking insane table fees left and right, then you just end up with like a negative account balance in your bank and, you know, just being completely disillusioned.
Yeah, but guess what? Everything's a loss and you owe zero in taxes.
Yeah, but then that can't even be done after like 3 or 4 years because then the government's going to be like, well,
what are you doing? How are you surviving?
Yeah, according to this, you should be dead.
They don't have to know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I remember, I feel like I've said this on the show, but one of the funny, I mean, it's grim but funny, like Noah Van Sciver made a Facebook post one time that was like, I got audited by the IRS and like one of the, you know, before like around 2010 or something, because they had to figure out how he was living off of so little as a cartoonist, which is insane to me. Like, but yeah, anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to figure out how low people can go. Is just talk to a cartoonist.
His feed was very depressing at the time. Like, I remember he was like posting like canned soup, being like, this should get me through the week. And it's like, wow, you know, like,
right.
Damn.
He's like an old timey cartoon and he's like slicing a pea into little slices and like fucking rationing that out over a month.
Wow.
Heating a can of beans over a fire outside because you can't afford rent.
With his little stick and bindle. Yeah.
Yeah, insane.
See, well, like, I think Fluke for me is my all-time favorite idea of a show because it was my first fest that I'd ever done tabling. And when I went, this was like 2018, I think, that so many people were down to trade and just like look at your stuff. And my zines were fucking shitty. You know, they were just like scrappy little things that I made. And I was so excited to be there and just meet other people who were into this thing. And that's what I want out of any show or anything that I organize too, is I want people to feel like they get to share this nice exchange and it's not really about egos or money or losses or the capitalist elements of it all. Because it's comics, it's zines. We're not here to make it big, you know? It's a community thing. It's a vibe. Yeah, I feel like I should give you some on-air food recommendations, Cam, for you and anyone else visiting Athens.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
So I've never eaten here because I'm a vegan, unfortunately. And,
okay.
But
long time vegan?
Yeah, 10 years.
All right.
Doggone Barbecue. That's like the barbecue spot for some good Mexican food. Tlaloc is great. And then close to where Fluke is, there's like right next door is a place called Clocked, which is a solid burger joint. But there's another place that's like a bar food spot called World Famous, and they've got chicken and waffles, so that's cool. And some good drinks, and there's also good music shows there. And if you want seafood, there's Sea Bear, which is a little more fancy, but it's also solid.
What's the name of that like diner joint that's like very popular in Athens? It's like kind of near the campus, sort of, and it's got like all this kitschy shit.
I'm trying to remember the name of that place. Fuck, I don't remember. I'm trying to remember if they're still open. So many places closed.
That's a shame.
And since then, because there was a really good vegetarian and vegan spot called The Grit that was there for a really long time.
Damn.
They closed, which I guess was always going to happen.
Right.
But the other place, The Grill.
The Grill. Okay. Yeah. Because I've only been to Athens once. It was like in like 2007 or something. And that was a place we went to eat after the show because we traveled up there to go to see what was it? It was like Chick Chick Chick, I think, played a show there.
Oh, okay.
And that was like the only time I ever got a chance to go to Athens. So
yeah, I guess my last recommendation is if you need a good breakfast spot, Ideal Bagel. It's got
Oh.
some solid bagels.
Now you're speaking Cam's language.
Well, the thing is there's a bagel spot right next to SPX. So I got to try this place to see which comic show has the better bagel joint on the map. But I guess Blake won't be there, unfortunately. I feel like Blake would have to co-sign it for it to be official, like a 2-man stamp.
You got to mail him a sandwich.
Just
bring
ride
him
it
back
back.
one.
Yeah, overnight that
drive,
shit.
Hey, dude,
Nah.
this is like 5 hours old, but
Yeah, every
All right,
time we go back, we go to Ideal before we leave town. It's a nice thing to do.
Hell
Nice.
yeah.
Oh, real quick. So you've been a Cincinnatian for the last 2 years. Any like food spots that you've liked while, in Cincy? Like, are there any places that you've come to being like, oh yeah, this is the spot, or this is a place to avoid?
As a vegan, not the best. It's pretty barren.
Yeah.
There's one good spot at this this place. It's like the historical food market called Finley Market. They have a New York style deli that's all vegan. That's called Harmony. They have great sandwiches there. But the best place to eat, and I went here with MS before we went to Justin Green's memorial gallery thing, is a place. It's Nepalese. It's called Bridges. It's so fucking good.
Okay. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know where I went last time I was in Cincinnati? I was with my dad, and he wanted to go so bad. He wanted to go to Wahlburgers. So I went to fucking
Jesus
Wahlburgers.
Christ.
Yeah, that's where I went last time, and it was way overpriced and not really that good, to be honest. Like Shake Shack and In-N-Out were better, but yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty bad, man.
Yeah.
If you are ever in Westchester for some reason or another,
go to IKEA.
Go to IKEA.
Yeah.
Great spot, really good food. No, there's a place called Saigon Noodle Bar.
Ooh.
It has the best
okay.
banh mi I've ever had.
Oh,
Damn.
wow. Damn.
It's,
All right.
Yeah, it's just a fucking suburb outside of Cincinnati. The only reason why I found out about it is because my work headquarters is in Westchester. What was it? I think me and my manager, we went to like this pho place the first day, and it was like their place to go to. But then we found another joint, so we went there the next day, and that place blew the other place out of the water. Like it wasn't even fair. Like you couldn't even compare the two. It was like night and day.
Ooh. Damn.
Just really
Hell yeah.
good, fresh French baguettes.
Yeah.
Really good variety. The ingredients were really good. It's just, and the pho was so good too. That was the other thing too. Like it'd be one thing if like the pho was okay, but the banh mi's were really good. No, everything was good.
Damn. I love pho and I love a banh mi.
Yeah, they also had a very good vegan pho and a vegan banh mi. So
All right. Well, there you
Sick.
go check it out.
Yeah. One place I haven't been to in Athens yet that's pretty new that I want to go to is called Puma Yu's. It's like a Southeast Asian style place with like cocktails and wine as well.
Ooh.
go. Okay. Hell yeah.
Y'all are going to get fancy out there, huh?
Oh, yeah.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and round out food discussion because I'm getting I'm starving over here now.
Yeah, I'm starting
Yeah.
to feel it now. Yeah.
So let's get into listener questions. Is that cool with everybody?
Yeah.
All right, hell yeah. There's some more food in there though, so don't worry. As always, the spiel. If you want to follow us on Instagram at GutterBoysPod or me at Cam Del Rosario or JB at Mort Crimp Jr. Anytime we have a guest that comes on the show, we put up a little question box for you to submit to the show. And we did get a few here. So let's see here. Alrighty, first up, we got this is becoming par for the course here. Nick Forker, what's your favorite cover you've ever drawn?
Yeah, I would say that would be the cover for Sid the Sickos. That was my first time doing a watercolor wash and using a dip pen to create this illustrative bat on this sick looking green watercolor wash, and
Yeah,
I like
I've got
it.
that book over here. It looks cool.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right, next question is from Instagram user Rankorama Art.
What's up, Josie?
What's going on, Josie?
What's up?
She asked, hardest part of writing about a fictional band?
Yeah, I know we talked about that a little bit, but I would say, aside from musical effects, is actually coming up with songs for them to play and perform, like writing songs and lyrics. That's been something I'm putting off right now for this sequel book, so we'll see how that goes. But I love drawing people playing music, so that's the fun, easy part.
Hell yeah. Alrighty. Instagram user Stephen Pelnet said, learning restraint and mark making. They're so good at it. So I guess they want some stories or advice there.
Well, hell yeah, Stephen. Thank you. Their shit's really cool. So I don't know.
It really is.
I don't know what their compliment to me is. I think maybe as far as like, I think my sketchbook and Mild Pain comics are more expressive in mark making. And during like 2019, 2020, I was experimenting a lot more in painting and just doing some abstract expressionist type shit. And after taking some workshops with Bayer and Hyena, got to learn a little bit more about thinking about different textures or line weights, or trying to figure out when something looks done and not over rendering. That doesn't really answer the question, but it's nice to experiment and not feel like locked into a system, even though usually when you want to make comics, you want to be consistent. But that's what the sketchbook comics are for, is they can be playful and, experiment with mark making or different types of textures or styles.
Hell yeah.
Okay, next question is from Instagram user Awful Quiet. Sup, Brian? Yes.
Sup, dude?
He asked, advice for creating a community you want to see when one doesn't exist, comics, music, or otherwise.
Not the answer people want to hear, but it's just doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, setting up like for me, when I started doing a drink and draw, and that was my first time doing any community organizing, it was just a commitment to say publicly, either through flyering or whatever your local paper is or event calendar or on social media, is like, hey, I'm going to be at this place for this amount of time. Anyone is welcome to join me. And you just do that consistently enough until people show up. And, if someone is into the thing that you're into, they will come and it will be hopefully a good time.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to like reach out to people in those places that don't have like a solid scene, and just share ideas and just talk about like, hey, like, would you be interested in doing this, that, or the other? Like setting up, and it doesn't have to be anything major, right? Like you don't have to like fucking spend a bunch of money or hundreds of hours on this. It can be like little things that build up to, once you start snowballing and you get momentum and more people involved, then you can start setting up those larger events. But it's like one of those things where it is like very much like you have to build it brick by brick.
Yeah, and find some consistency too, like with like when I started the comics club here, when I reached out to Tom and Ren about using their space, it was, I had attended Cincinnati, and I had for a long time thought about wanting to start doing something, because I hadn't really done a whole lot of organizing other than I was in a collaborative studio space in part of the pandemic years. And that was cool to organize events with a group, but it was weird not having a space of my own. So making connections or talking to people who are like, at least are in the same sphere of what you want to do, and seeing where you can collaborate and that. And, it takes a lot of showing up, and it does take a bit of energy to organize that stuff. And just like maintaining a balance between your personal life and your organizing time, because you don't want to exhaust yourself or make it feel like a chore. It should be a cool, exciting thing that doesn't have to, drain you completely.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can't really treat it like, I feel like it's really easy to sort of over romanticize these things.
Yeah, totally.
When in reality is you're just doing things that you want to do, and you are working with other people who also want to do those things because they love those things. And so you just build relationships that way. And that's really all it is. It's, you don't have to, the moment you start thinking about it as these sort of tasks or like a job in that way, like that's when you just suck out any of the energy out of that thing. And it just becomes like a chore that you have to do. And that's the last thing that you want, right? Like you want to keep that momentum up because you're deeply invested in it. So I think it's important to like demystify a lot of those like assumptions about, organizing or like community development or any of that stuff. It's just like, no, you're just like working together with people with like-minded things that you want to do. That's it.
Exactly. I would say the other piece of advice I have is knowing that sometimes you will be faced with like complicated things or challenges.
Oh, yeah.
At least I did. Like my drink and draw got totally fucking ruined by this asshole guy who was showing up like drunk and stoned and like hitting on these college age girls. I'm like, hey, you're making everybody uncomfortable.
Right.
And then he started like fucking harassing me. So I'm like, okay, well, fuck you. I guess I'm not going to do this anymore in the same capacity. And then I'd stopped organizing that for a while. But it's, you have to decide, is it worth it? Because you're trying to create something that's like accessible to everybody, except for the jerks or the scrubs. You don't want them. But if you're going to do public organizing, you have to know that it's public. Anybody can kind of stroll in, and you have to kind of handle that with a bit of grace try to meet people where they are. But sometimes you're going to be met with resistance or with people who are just assholes, and that happens, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, you power through and you pick up again when you are ready to.
And, maybe this is the sign of like times changing, or maybe this is me just being like old and fucking like bitter or whatever. But like, I feel like I don't want to be like, oh, it was fucking better back in my day or whatever. But like when I was younger and I was like more involved in doing stuff like that, of course you'd run into shit like that. But because we had built up those relationships with like the venue spaces or whatever area or place that these types of events were taking place, and the people that were there, we would snuff that shit out immediately. It wouldn't even be a question. It's like either that person's getting physically tossed out, or we are beating the fucking shit out of him. That's it. There's no like, we need to take a vote and see. No. You stomp the fucking asshole out, and that's the end of it. And that usually signals to other people who would potentially feel emboldened by that kind of behavior to be like, oh, okay, I can see that shit is not accepted here. And that's the end of it. And I'm not saying that you should have done that, or, it's actually your fault, Abby,
you
that
should
you
have
didn't.
beat some ass.
No.
I should have beat some ass. I did have like friends of mine who are, dudes who I was like, hey, I feel a little unsafe and uncomfortable. So just so you guys know, because like these are the people I started this drink and draw with. And thankfully, buddy of mine, Eddie, was like, he does not take shit from anybody, and he will tell everybody to their face like who the fuck they are. And he totally told this asshole like his shit. Yeah. And like, that dude went on to like try and start his own drink and draw, but COVID had just started. It's like, all right, dude, well, no one is going to show up. Also, I'm going to tell everybody in the scene what the fuck you're about, and they're not going to show up to your event. Right. Because he basically, he tried to like hijack the idea of drink and draw. It's like, okay, asshole, it's not happening. And no one showed up. And as far as I know, there is no drink and draw anymore, but that's because I moved. Right.
Yeah, and I think, that's where the community element comes in, right? It's just like, you immediately identify a problem. Everybody is in on that problem and understands that problem, and also spreads information about that problem until that person is no longer going to feel safe to be present there.
Yeah.
Which lines up with, I guess, the ultimate thing here with creating a community is, as soon as you start to build trust with cool people, they're always going to be down to help you. Yeah. And that's what makes it worth doing, is that you don't have to do everything yourself. You can start to trust other people in your community, be like, hey, can you help me with this thing? And they will, because they also want to see that thing happen.
And I'm not, just to clarify, not saying you should just like start a band of like thugs to just beat people up.
Fight people, yeah.
I'm just saying street justice is very real, and in any fucking like community punk scene, like if you try that shit, totally. That's going to get squashed real fast.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen that plenty of times, like in the Athens music scene, and I know what that looks like. And but yeah, you can also just like call up your friends and beat the shit out of somebody if you really want to. That's community at its heart.
Oh, 100%. Yes. Yes. And you don't even have to call anyone. If they're all there, you just fucking give them the look and you point the person out, and that's it. It's done. That was one of the nice things about being in Gainesville when I was in Gainesville. It's like, because I would always hear how similar Gainesville and Athens were. Like,
there's a bit of a pipeline there.
Yeah, like culturally, they're very similar. They're both very embedded in like a music scene that has developed in a very grassroots way. A very active punk scene in both places. That kind of behavior is like rarely tolerated in a state that is largely okay with that kind of behavior. So they always felt like sister cities in a way.
Yeah, they're kind of these little, a little oasis in a sea of conservative and redneck behavior, or just, yeah, asshole behavior.
And there were pockets of that in other cities, but like Athens and Gainesville were very much like adamantly full throated, like that shit does not fly. So
Totally.
Hell yeah. Alrighty. Next question came from Jazz Heist. Jazz asked, favorite color?
Jazz, I said pink. Pink's
Hell
a nice
yeah.
one.
good answer.
All right.
All right, Drew, how dare you? Okay, Drawby Hell asks,
Beat your ass.
what's your Skyline chili order? All right, so I'm gonna, Abby, you answer first, and then everybody can give their answers after.
Yeah, the oyster crackers. I've never been to Skyline. There's nothing there for me.
Yeah. My answer is you look at the menu, you throw it in the trash, you walk outside, and you go to a better place, like Saigon Noodle Bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, my answer to that is you don't eat it. And I don't understand how, like, there's so many. Because, I mean, like...
it's disgusting.
That shit is wild.
Yeah.
Like, we have, like, 3 or 4 in Louisville. Like,
what?
Yeah. Yeah. For real.
What
Like,
the
there's one less than 2 miles from my house.
Why? It makes sense in Ohio.
Like, I really don't understand. I can't understand what kind of person, peace and love if there's like someone on our Patreon that owns a Skyline chili franchise.
No, fuck
but who wants to start? Who, like, out of all the restaurants you can franchise, you're like, yeah, I'm bringing a Skyline chili to town.
Wild.
It's disgusting.
Terrible.
I've seen plates of Skyline on the street. Like, I've met people who genuinely eat there, like, on a regular basis and like it. I'm like, this is an abomination to what chili is.
To food.
This shouldn't eat chili.
It's not, yeah.
Nah, fucking.
But there are people that will, like, die on the Skyline Chili Hill. It's wild. Like, fanatics for that shit, so.
Well, I mean, people talk shit about Ohio a lot, and now you know why. Just degenerates.
That and other reasons.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Cam from Clusterfucks Comics said, if you could erase one comic, mainstream, indie, etc., from existence, what would it be? I guess he probably sent this for all of us, but do you all have anything for this?
Clusterfucks Comics. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You're a great sponsor. I'm joking. Goddamn.
I actually thought about this because I saw this question come in, and I guess like a more recent example, even though we covered it on Patreon, is whatever that Blaise Lermay book is that someone sent about him sexting and like having Skype conversations. Like, that comic can just be erased from the world. That's fine. I never read it, but I'll say that one.
Yeah, I remember listening to those episodes. Like, fuck that guy. That's gross.
Yeah.
Are y'all familiar with Chick Tracks?
Yeah.
Fuck those. Those can go.
I kind of like those because of just how unhinged they are.
They are pretty unhinged, yeah.
Yeah, I think if I just like could choose to remove something from the universe, it'd be like that, or I don't know, Dilbert.
But
those are free also. So like that's another thing. It's like, I mean, you're not paying for.
I guess it's because like the fanatics that truly believe in that shit are doing harm, I suppose. So I can.
That's true, but removing those books, removing those zine comics, whatever you want to call them, does not remove the fanatics.
No, it does not, unfortunately.
Right, true. Yeah.
They still be out there.
Right.
Yeah.
But.
Well, JB, what do you give in the X?
I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. Because there's just so many.
You'll get your answer in 2 weeks if we remember.
I will say
Spider-Man.
No.
Yeah.
I will say right now, and this is a book that I love. I have always loved this book. Watchmen.
Ooh.
Only because it's like over the last like 15, 20 years, pretty much ever since Zack Snyder's movie came out, there's been like a hilarious misreading of that book.
It's like Fight Club.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, in the way of like how people it just went right over their head.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I agree. Hey, good choice.
Yeah, similar to the misinterpretation of the Punisher character.
Right. Yeah. Out of Punisher, at least we got something like Frankencastle, which is a book that like those types of fans, like those types of guys, threaten the creators to kill them because of that book. That's what that book.
Of course.
That's what that book was all about, right? So like that's why I'm like glad that stuff exists.
Unwell.
All right. Last question is from Joe Walsh.studio. He asked, I really appreciate your commitment to building community and making resources available through your website. Can you talk about how and why that became such a focus of yours and how it feeds into or influences your personal comic making practice? P.S. Thank you for starting Comics Club. It's already an amazing resource and outlet for comic lovers and creators in the Cincinnati area. After only 2 meetings, I promise not to screw it up in your absence.
Yeah, shout out Joe. Joe's a friend, dope artist too, who's making a comic right now. So definitely check out his work. He's crazy talented. Yeah, we kind of talked about this a bit, but I would say like the how and why it became a focus is very much in line with my relationship with living in Athens and getting more integrated into the punk scene and the music scene and service industry scene and feeling this community connection to a place and feeling like I could contribute to that and turn my attention outward and go forth and meet other artists. And some of the people I met in the first drink and draw I ever organized, they're still some of my like best and good friends that I talk to regularly. And it feeds into my influences in comic making is I've always tried to make my comics accessible, whether that's not charging a lot of money for them or sharing things on the internet without too much of a paywall. Like I have a Patreon now, but I've always felt weird about charging for things. And yeah, I just want things to feel open and accessible. And I think with community organizing and the comics I make, there's a lot of vulnerability that I release that way. Is that, you know, here I am, just a person who is very passionate about meeting other people, even though I'm incredibly shy and also kind of hate talking to people, but love it otherwise. Maybe it's a bit of example setting for myself that, you know, if I really want to do something, like I have the ability to, and I've done it before and I will continue to. And that's, I think, important in making comics is there's a lot of back and forth with the process and feeling like you want to stick with it, even though it's a kind of brutal creative expression because it's so long and so isolating that you need the other side of it, which is sharing it with people. And having zine fests or comics fests and, you know, live readings or podcasts or whatever the fuck, like places where you can build up community around that.
We don't need any more podcasts.
No, you don't need it. This is the one.
We're good on podcasts. Even this one is one too many.
Yeah.
No, this podcast is great. This, like, when I was listening to Gutter Boys for the first time back in 2020, I also was kind of what kicked me into making comics. Like everything I know now, like meeting MS and like going to the retreat, I probably wouldn't have known to have done that or thought to do it if I hadn't listened to this podcast. So I
am so sorry.
Yeah, don't go blaming us like that.
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
No, thank you. That's nice to hear. That's the only reason why we're still doing it is because when we hear things like that, we're like, okay, I guess we are doing something.
Yeah,
and that's why I do things too. Is that you know, like my website, people make use of it. I'm like, that's great, awesome. So do I, and I only want to put things out that serve me, and that's the forward thing and the mindset is if it's not serving me, I'm not going to do it. And that goes with community organizing or resource sharing or art making. Like I'm not going to make myself struggle to do something that isn't great for me. Like if I don't like it, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, it's a good way to live.
Yeah. I mean, I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, but, you know, I'm trying my best.
You know, I mean, to be fair, you could do a lot worse in Cincinnati.
No, I could. I don't want to piss on my Cincinnati friends. They're very sweet and nice, and I'm very glad that Joe lets me borrow all of his comic books, so that's great. And, you know, it's been cool to meet other people who are passionate about this silly little thing that we do. So
for sure.
Yeah.
So I think the next move is you should go to Gary, Indiana. really grow a
No,
scene
fuck.
out there.
Fuck Indiana. Although I will say, Indianapolis is a strange place, and I went to a Glue Stick Zine Fest there a couple of years ago, and had a great time. There's a lot of weirdos there, so that's cool.
Yeah, I hear that about Indianapolis, but also Bloomington too, because it's kind of like how
Bloomington's kind of like a punk city.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
because it's similar to Athens and Gainesville in that it is kind of a college town. It has like this sort of isolated culture outside of its own state.
Yeah. JB, do you think you'll move back to Chicago?
Well, I eventually will, because I do genuinely love Chicago. I still think of it as a home. In the meantime, I'm actually going to be moving just outside of Cincinnati.
Oh.
And technically it's in Indiana, but I'll be like an hour away from Cincinnati, give or take.
Word.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to come through.
Yeah, I'll likely be there fairly often just because I do have some friends in Cincinnati. So
Yeah, I will say we're trying with the Comics Club. I'm hoping that this summer we'll have some Columbus people come and do a reading event.
Oh, cool.
So keep your
Hell yeah.
eyes peeled. Follow Indie Northern Kentucky to find or follow me to find the updates.
Nice.
Yeah, so you teed that up perfectly. Before we get out of here, where can people follow you online and, get your books, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, my Instagram is mild_pain. And it's got the link tree with all the shit. My website for the resource sharing, Keep It Weird, it's called keepitweird.art. And my website's mildpain.art. You can find everything there too. I've got a little Big Cartel link. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
Hell yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, Abby, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. Genuinely, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much,
so
for real.
stoked.
And hopefully we'll see you relatively soon. Well, obviously, you're going to see Cam before you'll see me, but hopefully we'll see more of you in the near future. And folks, go check out more of her work online, support what she's doing. And until next time, stay gutter.